Sansu Pokwa Ebe, I was so wet wogon, and also Ebe, Yeshima, this particular constituency, a constituency, a war a year for a war a year data carrying 18.
Na nana GBC afa ho mekire kanda ho nso ka ho ana kanda mekire GBC afa ho e ho nso ka ho
kanda enso eche eye ayawaso I abato mpeto aso
wow nana mo koso afo oni di akire sade ebesi asibia no yene mo se wa na abetase na wo de amayen na no ponchecheku international national reporter honorable nchane yekoya yekokoje de yekoso ewo ayawaso east chini ya bato no eno ene wode mu amanebo aba emma na webrofo nkoche de a kire se haji ayesewene no
na ye free haji aho a yamfo ye ne kire mu ewo ensamfoforo mu ni nyina ya akanie sansa haji abai ya akanie no a ena wode ba eno ana lawyer ya kane no asanso ya director of Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission ya friend Professor Patrick Loch Otieno Lumumba mi amela kira no PLO Lumumba wono na ka say enu oche say ebima kanifo eya wo munyan say da bia gise ye we na wo mugina podium so a wo ba we si brofo kase ya say na me ya we si bia gu ya enso de adwuma ne ma no a hetre wansam na da ne tefra hwe ase wa na ya obehu anu wabutu sofu bi nkwamhye wo se wa anwo ba obema eno sa bie na amanyofo no ene abima kanifo no wono makwakoye eno na Professor Lumumba kire say ya wono munyan sa ade no na ade ba ko a wo hunu pa no say se bima mu mpanifo se wono mu anyai kasatenten ya ha ntoponko na akoka ne mpo na se wo mu amfa ensiye anya adwumaden a abibrem nya de ebetum pon da.
And I also know that we are ordinarily charitable to politicians. But I want you to look. In every African meeting, what your politicians do is to come, read speeches written for them, then they walk away. Then we wonder why we have protocols that are never fulfilled because we want to be nice. I want to remind all of us that until the day our politicians change their modus operandi, this continent will not realize what she desires. How is it that Chair Dlamini Zuma has been sitting here for 3 days and young politicians simply saunter in and saunter out? They must be called out. We have been too nice to politicians for too long. The time is now to tell them the truth in its unadulterated form.
So manyofo no so achedodo. Tada hase ye dware wo mabo mo powder bi san de o mo hyekire ye nka wo mo asem ene o ma ye pompom fe esense ye kom nanso bre na so say yesekire yeseduasam yenu eka nia enye no a wo mo ye no ye ka kire mo manim a ye mfam fatafata ho bia emfata ho ade no anya na enye papa sabi mpreduasa wudi nsem hunu a ni aka kire nsem hunu na wudi no kura ye nto sabi bia na aka na saare a kire wo na wokwa watimi asua ne ho ade ewom wei eye Professor Patrice Loch Otieno Lumumba PLO Lumumba nsem no
na wei the friend say African Prosperity Dialogue nase na obi esansemi so ni nyina wasan to aso chese sade aman panimfo ya Ghana man pani His Excellency John Dramani Mahama woni rokuja to abro kwa wo mu ko Zambia ewie amarane so afo beka se o free Ghana na wo ko Zambia kura free visa we no ebeboa pa amano pe ye kase eboso regular zebra nso bie so se eno na eba beto sa ebibrem ne ebibrem atoye ha dwadie pono kase no eba beto mu nkyene ama ye dwadie apono nyina emu atoto no atimi abiebie enna Professor Lumumba sande atoso bie kyese ebibiman na ye kana asem no moje enyinu no nye moje kuma sa bire ya ye pese eyiyi ahye no so nyina eyiyi boda ne firi ho ne ye dwadie timi koso no sa bire no nso na ebi mo nso wo modi tuo na edi wo mo man afi wo sande beto so se wono wo hesa Commonwealth no ene emo francophone kro na wo mo kana eye tete ho na se de na nkwato wo ho no eno a na da so a eguso kosinti kozise ye behunu hauna no atwa aba ahwe ano no ye bekoso akurakura nhwirensi ya
So as we are gathered here today, talking about a borderless Africa, let us be realistic. I'm speaking to you at a time when Africa is bleeding. There's war in Sudan. Nobody mentioned about it here. There is war in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Nobody mentioned it here. The Sahelian countries, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali are excluded from the activities of the African Union. Africa is not at ease. So even as we talk about a borderless Africa, we must talk about an Africa where there is peace, because you can have all the free borders you have, but if there is no peace, where will you move? I remember, I believe it's in the year 2020, the African Union said that there was the silencing of the guns. The guns are with us again. So my fellow Africans, let us not be romantic about what we are saying. Let us be realistic.
Papa na bien sam so pa eno wa che se ne kwanse ya ye nunu ya ho yesre esanse abibi man sabre ya ebino matwe wo mo ho afiri ti se ECOWAS ne African Union mu no sabre kro na nso ne ye pese yetimi didi edwa na ye bedi dwa no na asundwe ne ho a ne ye di ne sen na ye tena abibrem sesen enti yenya se ye nunu ye ho sre na ye nka nokre no enkyere ye ho
sa nokre ka no ano Epania wano waya mranimni a wabene pa wano na ye chief administrator ya wano kro ya founder elsan executive chairman edema African Prosperity Network wano na hihye adwumadi ya na professor PLO Lumumba no wawasie mechira Gabia Sare da ako wano so ye ka history na ye ka we na ko start free ha no wonka ketua bi nso so 1977 abiman aka ni fuo be sadio no ba ko be hia won kran ha ya sane ye no a wo mu hia yi won be hia kran ha ekwasensan bi e friend say Africa Standards Organization see ya de be boama ye nyina ya standardized system betimi aboama sane emo ne ye nyina ya ne pepepe ye nyina ya nya no bi 10 kilos ana ye nyina nya ne 2 kilos sa pepepe obi abetimi ne afiri ade akwa ha ye ya ne hwetre pansam anko ba bia na say ye tena we hu say ya better no mine self be mine yetimi akoyenim.
In 1977, African leaders met here, I think 21 of them in Accra, and they set up the Africa Standards Organization. And the idea they set it up was that they wanted to have a standardized system of producing stuff. And that was the foundation of our economic integration. Because they believed that if we couldn't manufacture, then we'll have nothing to sell among ourselves. This was 49 years ago. Again, they met in Abuja in 1991 and said they were going to set up the Economic Community of Africa. A few years later, as we saw, they ratified it and said that in 20 years' time, they will have a single currency. 34 years' time, they said. They will have a single currency. They will have a Central Bank of Africa. They will have a customs union. And as Museveni reminded us, they thought 34 years was too far away. It is before us in 2028. So ask yourself, how far have we gotten to implementing what our own leaders agreed to in 1991?
Sa question no me wa ho anu yi. Sa question no, wo mo de atu nsuom eti aso. Gabia Sare da akon busa sempa. Wo se wo de wa ahwe 34 years no mo ka so mbehwe no abibiman nyina akoi se ne akonu ka na eko wasenkwan de ne mmom se bia afro no nanka ya di na abibre mu nyina sa ne okọ America wo mu di dollar no nanka enso ye de ye afro ne ya di no correct wo mu ko ye nhihye ye to ho no wo mba ya no mbetena transe eno ano no wo man ko ho biem na nse wo msa akọ Abuja 91 ho ekoye ne wo mba ye eno nso so amfoi eno no wo wie no de to so no wa kire afedi aferi eye dwanfrofro pete momian kanchira ayi se dwanfunu afro pete full afro fuse na ye mpanimfo na wo mo kosensan krata ene ye treaty bi ekọ wi ase wo besan bi nso mba na ma beto she de afa wo mboda so te sania oman no ne da kire ne hyebere nyina enyina boda no so sa de no anye momian kanchira no mu nyai.
They met again in 2018 in Addis Ababa. They signed the Free Movement Protocol. This was January 2018. 2 months later, they met in Kigali and signed the AFCFTA. They need 15 signatures to ratify the free movement protocol. Only 4, as you saw. And what is interesting that out of the 4, 2 have been suspended from the AU, Mali and Niger. So only 2 have signed. And I think that this idea where our leaders meet, sign treaties and protocols, and then go back home, and 2 years later you go back and sign treaties and protocol, we need to say enough is enough, because those things that they sign, a lot of thought has gone in, and those are the things that we think will help move our continent forward. Yet for some reason we feel content to protect our borders as if our sovereignty relies on them or depends on them. But what those borders do is they restrict our sovereignty.
Yasi yemie biem na ye nyina ye mfamu nko. Enso yakwane yakwagitum. Se ye nyina ye biem wo bia mie bie ne de mu kama o Ghana utimi ko Egypt free. Utimi faka efri ha na wakwa Addis Ababa Ethiopia. Utimi kwa Nairobi Kenya. Utimi kwa Luanda nyina. Nanka watimi afam na akọ ya no te ne ofri enkran kwa Kumasi a wo bia kan benkum ne nifa nanso ye koba ya ne abeyire bodam yesi ye mo bia mfa boda no so ase wo man no ne hyebre nyina gina boda no so ni ayeye bia ni wa efa ede mfa so papa bia ede ebraye mo mian kan kire ya man panifo ne se wo munya saade no mo ye no na wo nyini wo man ne ho na nkrata asem no wo mo kwasansan a wo nya ho adwuma na nya so wo kwasansan wi a no ba na de aye photocopy na de abone dem na ne signature boso saade na nya kura we eye gabi asare chedako ne nsem no
ene ya godwa na godwa asem a wo kan ye ya ana Professor Isaac Boadi wono no University of Professional Studies Accra UPSC eho na odi ne dwuma eba tisa adesuamu a wa ben pa sikasam ne ntotoye nso de ene wonsuroja wa huratra ya wa ben aduru akiri ne wona so mpaka se ne di nkomo no wose de yewura gabi o kire da kono makeka nyina no ono wone asam tenten bia ka de wo ka ne se be careful ne se kwan ya yefa so ya manyofo wo mo de biti se sika okọ gold koko kakao wo mo de ya manyosam timi di hu nkomo kire ne ye beto ne se abre no nso kura no enye local commodity foreign enti aburochirefo na wo mo de ho boba enti se amanyofo tena ha na wo mo de bobo adum ne adan a wo mo mmoa emma wo mo e wasansa homa no wo hu so mfa so.
Gold is international products. It's not sold in Ghana. It's international markets, and we often receive dollars. So a product that you don't control prices, you only control quantity and extraction. When you're doing politics with such a product, you have to be very careful. And this advice to all governments. Our cocoa, our gold, the rest of our non-traditional product that we sell in the international market, we have to be very careful we don't play politics with. Because when you are put to test, you have problem. When there's a change in the international market, you have a problem. We only control quantity and extraction in Ghana, but the price of that product is being controlled in international markets.
UPSC, yeah, one can ha. Eho ena penny di ne dwuma Professor Isaac Boadi. One na atuyemfo say we should be careful.
Sarfo ye me so me de bi ka ho me de ande ye tia wa ya pomden de bomoden na fo ne chemu end point homeopathy clinic say udru end point homeopathy clinic a o de ka kire o me say na no no obrempon ka say be ma obu anu abu 69 be ma de e wo sanka te say free no num no mienu eba no miensa no nan ahomacha asem na meken ansa na no nan ne fa a obeso de akwadware abesen akwa adwuma no obetwro a eze a wotwro 6 o'clock ewo mpa so nanso sa abre no no watwro wagudi chi 69 chese wo a wonko wo a wo ma e na ada ho sa na wo hwa nkromo na wo ginigini we bi baba wo se wo ya afo achie wo hunu me pa cho sa de ni jai wo ya sa asem kase pa e na beto wo fie bomoden na poma afa enu achi no awo no na emma e wo awade enum enu nti ama se ye ka se awade no se edi valentine wie na awo ne bi ma ya wonu begu awade no mesra ko end point sisi a na wo ho beto afei wo kidney wasa abo omrabo e na afei so untini mu hawo nyina no fa nyina akwadan end point homeopathy clinic na wo muntwa ba nhwe no emfa ema end point there one more kro no mabo hia wa santemantam mu e na nkra ha ya social signboard Spinters Road asem na make kire wo no one butu ho je numbers ni taw 0244 867 068 0244 867 068 and 0274 234 321 0274 234 321 na only one mo abonko mo na how no etu obetwa ofiri ho na wo ba ebusia mesrew ya pa aduane a kira kwan aduane na wo pe no so pe ne ahoden wom pe ne ense wo ema wo hojo hwe be ma bi abu 69 na nya ne mfom so eye spices bi a ye de ye aduane ma ne di ye na am na abu 69 mema ya mamo nta ne di spices rough off nanso se spices no se ya onga de a eno de kwanda ho utimi di onga ne ye fra no ilelei mama say open hand no ekoye pa eno na da bia ya na me dia kukuduro ni onuado na meka kio say Dr. Tedros mo one more WHO eno no mu di nti eno no magye atum say obi abetimi adi ena me ya me nua ba Dr. Anita Kofo one more FDA ho one mo so agye atum say one mo do stamp na sisu say we di e Ghana mema di eyeye e ma di eyeye enkwada ne mpani nkokora ne mere wanyina adi a ekoye pa eye promasido fo na di aba one mo de ade bia one de aba bia no wiase nyina agye tum say papa enu nti eya no ape onga wo so ma akwada a eya aka chan say wonto onga ni awode steam wo ni awode eche ni awode fa ho nyina no onga ileleyi ena ye papa ebetimi aboa wo de ye aduane wie se ekimu a eya apensu akira kwan ensuo na wo bepe no se enye CASA ya ntworo ho CASA a mesra enye na ahwe ya na nkomi wom anye nkomi kura no a yade no e wo nsuo mu no a ema ya emwa ne wo nsuo mu ema yade no na ebi wo sa nsuo num na mom se ya tworo ho CASA dia you are free CASA Kasa Natural Mineral Water Kasaloma Ventures one na de sa nsuo baaye ya ekoyie pa se wonya bito na wonom a utimi say yes one munsupa abuju nsuo pa na ode serve ewo dwumadie bia ase a wo bia obenum bia no asem ka bia ni akiri Kasa Natural Mineral Water Kasaloma Ventures na kira kwan water fa won kran ha ya back hospital na chi wo se bia na ba bia wo open dodoom na nso ntimi mma yamfa ngu kai mumfa mre wo a mepa cho say ye tete adaba ne bi mpo na apase ye de ebre wo a je numbers ni taw 0206 469 430 0206 469 430 na one yen abo enkomo na emom ye ka aduane ne nsuo wobinum nsuo krampo a wonhu ne se wanum nsuo na se asane akresi bi na nanum no me pa cho wo wanum na ato uhia time herbal mixture ana wo de no oda so de ye no utimu se ya bro na se ne obi kan de akire me wo se na chiri bre mo pa ase ye de na to de panie e de awowo no uhia time herbal mixture wo awasem na making time herbal mixture kope bi tonom na bebo awo pa time herbal mixture no se ntontom so akaw na wa ma malaria ni bia ko time herbal mixture betimi ayi sa wo hawe nyina e de afiri so me pa cho nya na wo pharmacy ni herbal shops nyina na emom enya mo penfo ba wo makoda nufo na akoda wo nya mfinhia dumienu wo bia ka bia no bia etimi ye yie 0244 417669 0244 417669 one mother roma ena wiei wo mo so yasene ya yete baabie na ya bi sensem no e de amawo ye da ne ye ho simape ye ba kase ne nto aso ye de be mawo
Point homeopathy clinic Ghana had the obi enim sesa ye prostate na baby omutimi ye screening ema hu ni ye etu ase a na ye endpoint homeopathy clinic anase ye kidney ye liver problem wo fa baby na ajejo na de fa ne premature ejaculation no a ba ma bi a wo ne wodofo akwakwahia asa wo di ne ho agro asa wo tonte ene ye bra endpoint homeopathy clinic na ye moa e ma ne mema mo pa wo ye endpoint homeopathy clinic wo mo da mufua yare bia infections bi ne wo ho anase bia wo hwa wo fa baby na ajuju kidney problem prostate de endpoint homeopathy clinic kuma se obehu endpoint homeopathy clinic e wo konoma boy hia e na akra hanso so de wo mu ginamu ankasa e wo spintes zebra friend share signboard no hudro na obusasa wo pe endpoint homeopathy clinic obia e be kire for endpoint e wo 0244 867068 and 0274234321 endpoint homeopathy clinic wo mu demufua
Ewra, me pacho bra na me hwa de wo bag yi.
Bra, aden, ena so biem.
Hey, time heba me hwa ya me kan say yi ba kwin. Ani wayi mi ensen.
Bra, sanya time heba me hwa esia jimi ni me fiefo enya de abako ebeso yen.
We de udi se ofa ni nyina.
Time heba me hwa me ka se me di one dance ya heaven ena de me kwa akopie. Enti se malaria we draw ne time heba mixture.
Enye enunku o, de nanum oto a wontimi ani die no. Time heba mixture duro no ena ye ma wo. Oba a wo fa afuo de wo ma akoda no fo. Ene akoda woni mfie dumienu entimi num aduro yi bi. Se obeto aduro yi bi anoma, hwe se wakọ hospital anase lab ame yehu se wo atudie malaria yi bi ansa. Se o petam heba mixture enwe dudu etu a, fo ani kire KNG Herbal Center ewo Emrom Abidjan House. Ana ba ko so wo atonsu wo na ko junction.
Eno echi obenya bi atowo over the counter medicine sellers. Any herbal shop dodo na em.
Fre 0244 417669.
Kayo, set time no TIME. Time heba mixture. Afi malaria fever bi adani ziba ewo munu betu akọ.
FDA aji ejodi nkratu yi atu point homeopathy clinic. Ghana ha di obi enim sesa ye prostate. Na baby omutibi ye screening ema hu ni ye etu ase a. Na eye endpoint homeopathy clinic. Anase eye kidney, eye liver problem. Wo fa baby ena ajuju. Na de efe ne premature ejaculation no a. Ba ma bi a wo ne wodofo akwakwahia. Asa wo di ne ho agro. Asa wo tonte. Ene ye bra endpoint homeopathy clinic na ye moa wo. Ema ne mema mo pa wo. Eye endpoint homeopathy clinic. Wo mo da mufua. Yare bia infections bi ne wo ho. Anase bia wo hwa wo fa baby na ajuju. Kidney problem, prostate de. Eye endpoint homeopathy clinic. Kuma se ubehu endpoint homeopathy clinic. Ewo konoma boy here. Ena Accra hanso so de. Wo mo gina mu ankasa. Ewo Spinters bebre friend share signboard no. Hudu na ubusasa wo pe endpoint homeopathy clinic. Obi an ebe kire wo. For endpoint ewo 0244 867068 and 0274234321. Endpoint homeopathy clinic. Wo mo dem fua.
SOMPA TV Emma Akatuapa.
Eno kre ebusuama Akatuapa pampa. Afe ye wuramu ewa amanone. Na no ye hyase free dwada na ba ede besi fiada no ensam hodo atwaguo na fa amanone ho nsam no. Israel womo topa ye ne bi esa ko Palestine papre so me kire Gaza ho. Enam so ma Palestine fo nipa be esa aduasa mienu de. Womo efa ho tinanana mo wonse do. Wono ma na wani sempa na ebo sa amane yi womo se sa strike ya womo strike ye no asa edu pre kota bi na nam soro na wo be se asa wo bie tent nom womo ni ba won ho so no na kan yonis ho de na womo asa ba bia me kira na afo afam ho enam sa ya so ma Israel Defense Force no womo the statement e ba bonten e kire se we dey a terrorist na womo identify womo ewie ye no na sa Israel Defense Force of we womo ne isa Israel Security Agency sa womo ka bom na fe enhwemu bia se wono mo yo na wohu womo a ehye kire na etoda womo di sa abonefo sem no na fe wa bobo womo di no womo twa ba hwe sarfo na no ntini nyina no Israel abanda ni abre se woboa ahwese ye gini pakra afiri ne nsem ewo sa amanyi so no eto obetimi atwa
afei yegusu ejinamu ewo na no Jordan no ensem ni bi ya eba ye na Jordan no ene ye de beto anim se ayi mi ofa Donald Kwaku Trump wa kana ho se woni Iran supreme leader no a ye friend se Ali Ayatollah Khamenei woni no ade yam so kakra e wan tentan fedie ne so ya na no kra mi ofa ye se wo mo de USS Abraham Lincoln sa warship ya etese Ghana yi wọ́n de akosi Red Sea ne so ya wọ́n twen so mbagbo wuram wo Iran na wọ́n de akoya nsɛmpa ɛna nam so a Iran supreme leader no bɛka sɛ ade na me ofa Donald Trump oyɛ no wan hwɛ yi a wɔ frɛfrɛ bibi e friends original wo ɛna wɔ frɛfrɛ de ba no na me ofa yi na no me ofa say
why wouldn't he say that? Of course he would say that, but we have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close, couple of days, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right.
We have the biggest warship in the world. Warship ayisa subonto kese a yade kokon ma ne ye ne kita ne kese pa wo wiase wo se wo meye deal yade kan come and make a deal wo ma e na oto na oto fa mi oto ma ne me dia medical kan se wa ma dia ene ye wa na ope e na so meye deal me offer Donald Trump ne nsem ode ma Ali Ayatollah Khamenei Iran supreme leader no no
na ene se wotete bi ma Iran supreme leader wanwie ho ene wo san so de na no kokosi Putin ene Zelensky so na one de wo kan nyina ne se wo hwesa de Russia man panin Vladimir Putin wasi asore Ukraine fo so pa wo ma Vladimir Zelensky wonya haban tenwe no o se yetan ene wo mbanu no obi ata na yonko enti yetan jija ene wo mo de kon no.
A lot of things are happening. You have Iran and you have Russia, Ukraine, and you have the Middle East. We have a lot of things going. A lot of problems were here for a long time before I got here. We settled 8 wars. I think we're doing very well with Ukraine and Russia. For the first time, I'm saying that. I think we're going to maybe have some good news. We're losing 25,000 people a month are being killed, and that was 31,000 last month. Kids, the parents. It doesn't affect us in one way, but in another way, it's 25,000 souls that if I can solve it, we're not spending money like Biden did. He gave $350 billion away. I make everyone pay. And the United Nations, they're a little bit involved. But if you take a look at what's happening, the countries of Europe are paying us for the weapons. So we have NATO paying, we send missiles over there, they pay us in full. It doesn't cost us 10 cents. And we make money. Mary, can you imagine 25,000 to 30,000 people a month? That's like a stadium full of people every single month. I was blessed with something where I can get these things done. I thought all 8 were going to be more difficult than this one. I thought my relationship with President Putin would give us a much easier road, but there's tremendous hatred between Zelensky and Putin. Tremendous hatred. I mean, it's a shame, but it's taken longer than we thought. I did call up President Putin, and he's agreed. He's put it out too. They have the same cold wave that we do.
When you're there, time, and no, America man penny Donald Trump, and the workers are watching say, Bosumi a besane ko ye nkwan ti oje fomu na wo biebie sansemi so ya brada no asemi pie se nipa wo moti na nanom wonse do Russia and Ukraine temu nkwan no ebro stadium I fight nipa be say 25,000 30,000 na no eyesikamu enti o man no kana wo mabone sa no
asem kase pa na sa enkomoyi ene Russia and Ukraine na yedi kan so de abo anim deda na no Jordan no say Iran ho wo mo so asase ya say worship kese we wiase esi Red Sea ni so twen say Iran for baje pim na fe wo mo de ate esi Iran akose o minus eno na ye wo ho na no brada no a ene ate say Iran for wo mo drone ni baako na drone no enye zipline for de na edi nro ko ni bia eye ne ekoko ntokwa ekwa na bombo hye ho wo betia ne di mapete na ahye apete pa na ni kire Red Sea ni so yeah, walk USS Abraham Lincoln so the biggest warship in the world. And also na no walk na woman him say satellite no one fiti ye na no mahu. To wo twan ya ma ne dru eponim finfin. Resi ne finfin ho. E ho na American soldier fo no wo ti drone no e pete no de ne group no ma say ma mo atan ne ma no wo ma asa pass no kra wo didi agro wo pono ase. Na sa se be da adwa no. E na ye busa mpanifo say na ya te say US Navy aircraft baako ye adi dwuma pa e won finfin ho na sanati ana na wo mo kire no kure US Navy commander ba ko a won na ne amansan bon ho no jeso adende no kure wadi dwuma na mom na free Iran ho na eba Arabian Sea ni so won finfin ho no a be 500 miles from Iran almost southern coastal ho no a na free eba wo mo hwe ade ni din na ye friend no Sahel 139 drone yeah unnecessarily one maneuver no ho e de aba worship no so e no mo te no a na no brada no wam de ho kase ebre ye de ma atiefo nyina
na sade wo bo customer de fi we mandase e na bra wo mo yi no se wo meye US ambassador 2024 no ensama apiepie nyina yesa Epstein file ya Jeffrey Epstein ne nsam no akwakwa ebi owo edu ba bi akasa mampani Trump kura wo mpene ma wo mo publish nsam no se enya de wo twa botomu na mo a na wo mo hu asankura potie fa ho ntia Jeffrey Epstein wo mo twene se wo wi anam no na ekwawie na customer ebe kire se we nyina echi no pressure pa wo mo sogu no so pa se wo mo akwakoyi mandase ndi ama US se ambassador e wo 2024 no na we na health secretary was saying we dia kura no one day ka say nyame de chenya sanse mi e was ho information nyina no wo mo de to monten na abibifo emu abrofo nyina wono mu hu na asam no wo mo ntutu ne sere ne abasa we wo ka no BBC for kura fa bi na ne ye gina ho deda.
To be fair to the Prime Minister and to put that choice into context, that second resignation when Peter Mandelson was last in government, Peter Mandelson was cleared of wrongdoing in relation to that. And then subsequently, he had served, we thought, successfully and effectively as Business Secretary in Gordon Brown's government. He'd served successfully as the EU's Trade Commissioner. He is obviously an experienced politician, and it was felt that those skills would serve our country well at a sensitive time for UK-US relations, particularly in relation to trade, but also against a turbulent backdrop. That's why that judgment was made then to appoint Peter Mandelson as US ambassador. And as a general rule, we don't do guilt by association, and so we don't blame people for the actions of people that they may have been friends or associated with. But it was clear to the Prime Minister in the release of the last tranche of Epstein documents that he had not been given the whole truth, and that is why the Prime Minister sacked Peter Mandelson.
One on health secretary West Street no and what treaty asam no sample kra e dia chance entrofo na so ni nyina mu no wo mo de atoso se de na vet no mu nsam tie nyina no kra wo mu ne mu nkontompo no wo mfanto monte na obi anhwe bi
na se bada montene mo obi ahwe bi na se na montene no en na watwi mu no na customer ya hoye UK mansoafo won na ne nsam ho apaso pansan so na appoint Peter Mandelson man ne koye ambassador e wa mi ofa kro mu a wone Jeffrey Epstein ekwafa adamfo Jeffrey Epstein mu kro no ye pedophile wono ye perpendicular nkora no fefe wo mo e na sa asem we se kwa ya wono customer wo se asem bi wo peso waka Peter Mandelson no wono no wo twantro wone ne team ni nyina no wo twantro enti ade no ane a wo se da bi e no wo se an wenya abotre kire mu sei na bra wo kire mu no na sompaka se agina mfimfin.
I am as angry as the public and any member of this House. Mandelson betrayed our country, our Parliament and my party. Mr. Speaker, he lied repeatedly to my team when asked about his relationship with Epstein before and during his tenure as ambassador. I regret appointing him. If I knew then what I know now, he would never have been anywhere near government. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Cabinet Secretary, with my support, took the decision to refer material to the police, and there is now a criminal investigation. I've instructed my team to draft legislation to strip Mandelson of his title and wider legislation to remove disgraced peers. And this morning I've agreed with His Majesty the King that Mandelson should be removed from the list of Privy Councillors on grounds that he's brought the reputation of the Privy Council into disrepute.
We yera customer enanu ukwada no wo ko mrahye bedwam ewo UK eno ade we nyina kwato general say ne santi wadane asem kwada ma prosecute so omnya ne criminal case na afi waka kire King Charles say nanka Mandesi say de wo serve ye no ko betibi kura akọ abankasiem no akọ akotufo yenyini meyama ne meya abankasie na no kura nyasa wadifi ebeka UK man no
na ewie no wasande beto so say we dia wo repa chopa esan se Jeffrey Epstein wo mo anam ne nsa so ma ekwewie saafo no wo mo nso nya asem bia wo pa wo mo chew se wajeje so ama Peter Mandelson wo ba bedi ntro na sa atro no so 2024 yi wo mo anya wo hwiaje atomu na ene asase efifira ebu wo mapre na wo kan we no wo che se conservative wo mo leader Olukemi Olufunto Adegoke bade no chekura no wonu say wo busa question busa se de ekeka koi no na se stama no so wo mo pam no na wieye no customer santro na medicine die no wo pa ho chew.
Mandelson was asked directly about the nature of his relationship with Epstein. He was asked whether he had stayed at Epstein after his conviction, and when later further information came to light, he was asked whether he had accepted gifts and hospitality, about whether he had been fully transparent about the relationship. The information now available makes clear that the answers he gave were lies. He portrayed Epstein as someone he barely knew, And when that became clear, and it was not true, I sacked him. Such deceit is incompatible with public service.
Eno ura kestama wanona akasei efa sade Peter Mendes yeso watwa ntro na saa tro nso no aba be tro kan ewo Europe amamu ho no ehon nkomo no wogina mrase badwafia na wopa ho chewi
na wosansem ya ho no ya wadamu ne egina yi ya in fact na watwi mu no customer wotrende pa woni Peter Manderson no wo ne nam abefo ntentan fidie no so ba bia na ya wada ye begina mu na ye san kwete fa so na no na ye ne Olukemi Olufunto Adigoke but the notch ya wo no we British politician na was serve as leader our opposition party no masese kura no one ye leader ye kan ko minority leader no our conservative party no mu a every November 2024 de besi nne wogusu wo ho no no wadi ne MP no our Northwest Essex kanani afre no Safford Walden 2017 no mu an we de ko mra shebadwam wogusu wo ho a and was dear banso no in fact one wodwene ho awante ase o na wonya ambotre ebusa customer wo putu no putu to you I
am asking the Prime Minister something very specific, not about the generalities of the full extent. Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
Prime Minister? Yes, it did. As a result, various questions were put to him. I intend to disclose to this House all of the national security, prejudice to international relations on one side. I want to make sure this House sees the full documentation so it will see for itself the extent to which time and time again Mandelson completely misrepresented the extent of his relationship with Epstein and lied throughout the process, including in response to the due diligence.
Enti for due diligence inti nokura ye hunu ye nanso nkakra ya ho adwuma wo wie ye pe na wono ankasa ne housing secretary friend say Steve Reed wono ukopie mu ewo Labour Party no mu a wo ye mrahye badwani eni ebusa ne sa so enti ne akoso nyina customer won si from ana na wo kire mu sei.
This was our manifesto, right? One man, one word: change. Yeah. That's what we promised. That was the whole of what we as the Labour Party promised this country. Change. This looks more like the same. I think that he needs to think very hard about what is in the country's best interest and what is in his party's best interest.
I think he should think hard in what is interest of the country and the party. Party ni interest is any country ni dia na ye baako. Sir customer wagu amani ho fi into ano awonwene ho mienu we Steve Reed oko UK we housing secretary our hanka works and housing minister wono na wode na no disem atudwa no
na waka ten hard no na chese eyesa wotenke hard enya football people ten hard asam no waka afi yankwankwa wie ni fiadam we eno nso yakwa Russia ho na topa ya foforo kura to amasesei womo sra don mpanimfo a na womo ka ho bi pa edumaboa se adwobre betimi aba eduru America no womo kɔ yenkohia Zelensky safo ya na ne edi animu na womo hwese enema betimi ayi Lieutenant General Vladimir Alexiev wono asa na mekan sabra America sei watina nanom wonse do ni nyina topa ya womo etoi de kokoto womo flat mu a sabre ye hwe no wate asofo sa asisu a yenhunu na ayasa bia womo ene hwe no ehunu sampa watina nanom wonse do no pani a wokasa ye Svilanta nana Petrenko wono Russia ni ene wono nso de ba beto say CCTV footage wo ma hwehwe pa ehunu ya nhwemu mapa ekoso na we no ombeka say calculated attempt wo mo sheda esanse se uha 2025 no mu a December ansana ye ba bedi bro nya no mu a ena Lieutenant General Fanil Saravarov wono nso wo muku ne saa anso ho 2024 eno nso obetimi aka ne plane say de wo hwe wo mu nuclear and biological chemical protection troops no so wono nso saa Lieutenant General Krylov wono nso saa wo mo ede na enama no ya se wo ma hyeda se wo mu yi wo mu a wo ka bi ebam na wo Russia sra dom no wo ya kandifo pa wa bi ne yie no nyansa kwa na wo mo fa yi na eno na panin bi ka se we won fa hye ba bia o Zelensky ne Kyiv na Ukraine fo no wo ma na do be hye won
na ye wie kura ewo eno ansem a epi adwa no US Secretary of State your friend Marco Rubio wakasaye eno wo chese no kura me offer Donald Trump why ready pass na aban no one Iran supreme leader na say why stubborn no Ali Ayatollah Khamenei one ne behia na won mabon komo nanso why no ho tintintinti wono no a ye de worship kesi abesi waboboa no e ba won trene no unzu gina na autoto abo de ba park no so na wakawe ye pe na me offer say asem no ka se hunhunu ka mama ya menye mic no na me mfre so mpafo nka nkyerem say me offer say okwa akoka kire wiase amansan nyina say me see Ali Khamenei he should be worried pa say wa ma me anya negotiations ne dia enche worship no wadwumaye
I would say he should be very worried, yeah. He should be. As you know, they're negotiating with us. Had their back, and look, that country's a mess right now because of us. We went in, we wiped out their nuclear. If I didn't take out their nuclear, think of it, if we didn't take out that nuclear, we wouldn't have peace in the Middle East because the Arab countries could have never done that. They were very, very afraid of Iran.
Yeah.
They're not afraid of Iran anymore. We wiped out those beautiful B-2 bombers. One's right over there. Those beautiful little model. Those beautiful B-2 bombers went in and they hit their target, every single bomb, and obliterated it. And because of that, they were going to have a nuclear weapon within 1 month. Within 1 month, they were going to have a nuclear weapon. Yeah. That was a big threat. That they're not going to have it anymore. I heard that they are, and if they do, and I let them know, if they do, we're going to send them right back and do their job. They tried to go back to the site. They weren't even able to get near it. There was total obliteration. But they were thinking about starting a new site in a different part of the country. We found out about it. I said, you do that, we're going to do very bad things to you.
Sir, when we are margin, some of Mobako attack dia. When we are margin, some bay giddy dia, and you're not when you'll be the Kumanchi. As I said, you know, one epe, and what or depo, every mojamu. Name, ye America for, yama or mine, I say you. And here's what another, and also, sir, a bra woman share woman sabi woman some who no, yes, to a poor woman tama, and can you so mine or want to tell proper and some say. Yang quantum enuntia we am offer one some paka se na bon koma ye gina we so na ka se no e de be so mo awie no ye bu ni kom se pen e de ama wo endpoint to be party clinic na dawroma ebra na onga abo ne chidom na fe kasa na chami no water e bo ano na time heba mixture e bo na baba no na dawroma e ne de kase ebra wo na ye twagu ye wa sompa 106.5 FM so wan kran ha no Sompa 93.1 eno so asante mantam mu twagu ye e ma obi anya bitie aiko 100.9 wono so twagu ye a wo manfo no ho ni nyina anya bitie kama e ma ekoyie pa sabre kro ye yadanfo pa Radio France ahenkro Paris no mu omo so giye Sompa 101.1 watakwa Sompa 103.3 e watakwa de Sompa 106.1 e watachiman Sompa 98.9 wesunyane Sompa 90.7 won kranza Sompa 101.3 e wadoma Afe Doma FM 100.7 Wanosu Jigumu Kingdom 106.1 Ewa Mankasim Decoder na so ya Sompa FM Facebook no Sompa 106.5 FM Accra na YouTube ni ya Sompa FM Live www.sompaonline.com so ensemi dodo na anu etwa gu ho a unya bi ekenkan ye etie ye afe Kanehia Ban Radio wanosu jinsem no ebo peten ye ema etiefo nyina so efa bi wa Kanehia enuanom ne ye ben no oduman kuma chia me obrempon na kwaku ampoma mene mebra pani
triple A man ejapia apam dada
ye ko ye dane ye ho sima pe ye ba ye be metie